Right. We are going to give everybody a couple of minutes to get everyone signed in. I'm so excited to see everybody getting on. We have some familiar faces that have signed up for the webinar. So I know Carol and I are very excited to see you guys today. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started and pass this over to Carol in just 1 minute. But I want to welcome all of you who are here with us today and anyone who is joining us later watching the replay. Thank you for joining us for Builder Partnership Shin Consulting Webinar Wednesday. We are so excited to share our knowledge with you today. Carol is a phenomenal expert in customer service, and we are honored to have her here with us today to talk about today's consumers and how they got that way. Before we get started and I hand this over to Carol, I do want to go over a few housekeeping items. For those of you who have been with me before, you've heard all of this before, but I just want to make sure anybody new coming today, they know how to interact with us while we're doing the webinar. Down on the bottom of your screen, you'll see two little speech bubbles, a Q and an A underneath that. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar. We will reserve the questions until the end when I read them out loud for Carol to respond to. But you can just click on that button and type in your answer or your question, and we'll go ahead and answer that at the end. If you have any technical issues, you can't hear, I can do my best to help you on that on the background. There's a little single speech bubble down at the bottom. It has the word chat underneath that. You can select to speak to me directly, and I can go ahead and help you in the background if you have any questions on anything specific that is related to just me. We are recording this, so you're welcome to revisit this after the presentation today. It usually is up on our website by the end of the day. If you'd like to share this presentation with anybody else, feel free to share the link as well. You'll get an email from us tomorrow thanking you for joining us with the webinar, and you'll have information to contact Carol if you have any additional questions. With that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Carol. I'm going to also in the chat, you guys should be able to download the workbook that's coming with today's presentation in the chat. I'm going to put that in there. You can download that. If you're not able to, let me know and I can email it to you at the end of the program. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Carol. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you very much, Emma Jane. I'm delighted to be with you today, and I'm very excited about this information. I have had conversations with builders coast to coast in the United States and in several provinces from Canada, and they've mentioned to me how aggressive, short-tempered, mean-spirited, perhaps, some of their customers have become, and they wondered what they were doing wrong. And this program answers that. The bottom line is you're not doing anything wrong. The consumers are under a lot of stress. Let's look at some of it. In 2007, a gentleman by the name of Eamon Kelly came out with a book called Powerful Times, which I found to be fascinating. He described 7 different conflicts in our society, and each one of these causes us to be under stress. We're either curious about it, mildly interested, or we're tearing our hair out with concerns. For example, people versus planet. Do we give people the homes and the cars and the materials that they need to have a comfortable life, or do we protect our environment? It's that kind of conflict that we all struggle with. So Kelly's book was a pretty eye-opening piece of literature. As time passed, however, I noticed there were other things going on besides the 7 that Kelly mentioned. Right now, we're all concerned about what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine is dear to my heart. My father's ancestors were from Ukraine. We've got the China-North Korea thing and the threat of nuclear war hanging over our heads. And then, like that's not enough, there's diseases and vaccine issues to be concerned about. And you know, the whole lab leak thing from Wuhan was kind of confusing. And one of the reasons for that was the United States had actually invested $600,000 in the research going on in that lab. And so our government was a little hesitant to admit that and be accused of contributing to a worldwide phenomenon that shocked all of us. COVID's impact on the kids has been profoundly serious. They're behind in school. Their behavior has changed. It's really challenging to have young children who went through that with us. The economy, of course, is all over the place, unpredictable. We feel a little shaken by that sometimes. Lady named Faith Popcorn, if you haven't heard of her before, has information about trends that are prevalent in our culture. She identified 17 of them, and I find her work absolutely fascinating and right on the money as far as what I see with customers and what I hear about from builders. One of the trends she's described is called future tense. This is where consumers are so upset about what's going on, they're not sure they're going to be able to cope with what's coming next. And I think a lot of us can identify with that. Edelman Trust Barometer is an interesting group. They study attitudes and things going on in the world, not just in our country, but all the way around the planet. Currently, our level of optimism in the United States is just a little above one third. About one third of the people in our country think they'll be better off in 5 years. That's not a terribly impressive number as far as I'm concerned. Got gender controversies. Those are close to my heart because I've got two grandchildren going through that, and it's really confusing and difficult to manage it successfully. Failing schools, that's heartbreaking. As a former English teacher, I can tell you I've seen the changes in our education system, and they're very disappointing. We don't trust our governments. In 1975, or excuse me, 1958, 75% of us trusted the government. Well, that was a long time ago, and nowadays that number's down around 30. It's been that way since 2007. So we really are lacking in confidence in the leadership that we have. I find this organization to be extremely interesting also. I check every January or so when they come out with their report about the previous year. For 2022, they have ranked the various countries around the planet, about 180 of them, according to how the voters perceive the level of corruption in their government. I know this is tiny print, so we'll enlarge some of it so we can see what's going on. Denmark, Finland, and New Zealand ranked the highest, with scores starting at 90. Those three countries, by the way, have been at the top of the list for quite a while. The countries at the bottom of the list, no surprises here. Somalia, Syria, and South Sudan aren't doing well in terms of their buyers' confidence in their government. I know you want to know where we're at. We're number 24 with a score of 69. The Canadians north of us have a score of 74, so they're in spot number 14. The United States actually dropped out of the top 20 in 2009 after the Bernie Madoff scandal, and we haven't gotten back in the top 20 since. Sure, you're curious about where these three nations are. China has a score of 45, so they're in spot number 65. Russia is at 138, and North Korea is at 174. And quite frankly, I'm a little surprised that China got that good of a score. We don't trust our media. Here's information again from the Edelman folks about this. We trust government at about 39% right at the moment, media 42. We trust business more than we trust our government or our media. All of this leads us to Lily Tomlin's conclusion. I worry that no matter how cynical you become, you still can't keep up. In addition, we have racial tension, the fentanyl marijuana issues, crime, and light punishment. I'm mystified by the light punishment that's going on around the country. Washington, D.C. carjackings are up 327% since 2020 because they lightened the punishment for it. It's almost as if they want to give you a plaque if you steal a car. This reminds me of the Strother Martin line in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Morons. I've got morons on my team. What are we thinking? Criminals should be punished. They're not going to stop if you just give them a pat on the back. Most of us are concerned about health care costs, not to mention mental health care. I have a stepdaughter who has schizoaffective disorder, so I have watched up close and personal the mental health care in the state of Colorado, and I was not at all surprised to see we rank 47th. I'm surprised we got that good of a score. Mental Health America organization a few years ago gave each of our states a letter grade between A and F. No state got an A. Only two got Bs, California and one on the East Coast. Everybody else got a C or a D. Colorado got a C at that point in time, and again, I didn't think they deserved that. We have generational issues in our country, and for the first time, 5 different generations at work and play and shopping. Attitudes are different based on which generation you're in. You grew up with a group of people similar, going through school, going out to get a job, and so on and so forth. And so the attitudes of the generations tend to be fairly consistent. It's not carved in concrete by any means, but still, it is a factor in our culture, something to be aware of when you work with your customers and your trade contractors. Many of us are very concerned about climate change. We don't know what to believe. We certainly don't feel that we have much power to do anything about it. This was a headline in our paper and online. Everyone should be concerned because the sea ice is reaching its lowest levels ever recorded. That was just from last March. Going back to Faith Popcorn's list of things we're concerned about, there's one called atmosphere, which is concern about polluted air, contaminated water, and so forth. And the number of food recalls we've had recently certainly confirms what she's telling us about our worries in that realm. Now we have to be concerned, too, about biodiversity. We're worried that some of our animals and some of our birds and some of our fish are disappearing from the planet. That's really not a good thing. That variety was interesting, and it's important to the health of the planet. Then there's gun violence. There were shootings in Denver again yesterday. It's almost a daily occurrence. In Atlanta, a home builder had a complaint from a customer about something wrong with their siding. They organized an appointment with the manufacturer and the warranty manager. They went out to the home to inspect it and figure out what needed to be done. The homeowner met them and walked around the house with them as they did their inspection and review. The homeowner had a pistol in her back pocket the entire time of that appointment. The homeowner in Toronto told her warranty manager during an inspection, "I own a 44 and I know how to use it." I'm really shocked by this because, generally speaking, Canadians are a little calmer and a little easier to get along with than the U.S. population. But here again, I was in Edmonton working with a client there. The receptionist was in tears when I arrived at the office. I asked her what was wrong, and she said, "I just got off the phone with one of our homeowners. He told me he's on his way here to our office with a bomb." So far, since the beginning of 2023, there have been over 6,000 gun fatalities in our country. There actually have been over 15,000, but 9,000 of them were suicides. 6,000 is a pretty high number. In fact, the United States leads the world in this issue. We have twice as many gun shootings as Canada. We have about 8 times as many as Australia and 20 times as many as England. This is really kind of frightening statistic. There is some hope on the horizon. Omaha has stepped up to do a program to try to control gun violence and manage this issue more effectively. They organized a program called Omaha 360 back in 2009. It involved representatives from law enforcement, crisis intervention, mental health, and so on. These people get together every Wednesday night and they talk about the progress they've made, the new ideas they have, and what they're hearing from the public. There's generally 80 to 120 people who attend this forum. Some of the things they have implemented are intervention, de-escalation, a reentry program to get people who came out of prison back into society successfully. They assist those folks in finding employment and so on. The support services they provide have really had an impact. Their gun violence is down by about 50%. Other cities, by the way, are beginning to copy that program. I don't know about you, but I feel vulnerable when I'm online in particular, that someone's going to try to take over my computer. Everybody has that little concern in the back of their mind that they're going to turn on their phone and find that something weird has happened to it. Then we're all concerned about terrorism worldwide. These characters are just not very friendly, and we don't like them at all, but sometimes they sneak up on us. Then we have the immigration on our southern border, what to do about that, how to help those people without having issues with drug dealers and child molesters and folks like that we really don't want in our country. Supply chain issues are serious issues still, depending on where you're at. You might be missing shower enclosures, you might be missing toilets, you might be missing cabinet parts. One of our national cabinet manufacturers at one point recently was missing 14,000 cabinet parts nationwide. They organized a department to deal with this issue. They got the program down to such an effective level that they reduced that 14,000 to 8,000, but they're still working on it. And we also have a serious skilled trade shortage. This is near and dear to the hearts of home builders without any doubt. Plumbers advertised for new apprentices and didn't have any of the postings filled almost a month later. Other aspects of construction have similar statistical data where jobs are available, but nobody seems to be interested in doing any work that involves working with their hands. Now we have to be concerned too about bank stability. We haven't heard too much about that in recent days, but it's a serious worry if you have some money in the bank. And then communication. It's constant. Your cell phone, the internet, the telephone, the television, the radio, wherever you go, people are trying to talk to you, give you a message, or sell you something. It's no wonder that today's consumer are just a little bit stressed. And each and every one of us has personal issues on top of all these other social issues to be concerned about. Maybe your kids aren't doing as well in school as you would like, or your new car is making a strange noise. Maybe you've got a neighbor whose dog goes out and barks at 3 in the morning and you can't figure out how to get him to understand that's not a great idea. Whatever's going on in your personal life causes you yet more stress. So at the end of the day, we go back to our homes, we close and lock the door, and we feel safe and in control. And for some of us, that feels the only place on the planet where we can feel comfortable. Your homeowners do the same thing. They lock the door, they feel safe, they feel in control. And let me tell you, you do not want to be the person who tells them they're not in control. Whether it's the salesperson, the selection manager, the superintendent, the orientation host, or the warranty rep, homeowners are going to tell you what they want, and you better do it, or else. Their tempers are going to come out, and all the stress that has accumulated from all those other sources can get vented in your face. They may not be able to talk to the politicians, but they can talk to you. Another trend that Faith Popcorn identified is truly important to today's buyer is called egonomics. This is a trend where the consumer wants to be known as John or Elizabeth or Bradley or whatever their name is, and they want you to get to know them on a personal level. They want you to pay attention to their likes, their dislikes, and their needs. Walker Research, a spin-off from Faith Popcorn's company, reinforces this. They reported that in 2014, 4% of the population was interested in being treated like individual people instead of an account number. That number increased until in the 2020 year, it was over 80%, and it has only gone up since. What does this mean? As one tiny example, if you have your buyers fill out a buyer profile in the initial stages of you getting to know each other, one of the questions you might ask is, do you have any dietary preferences? Some of them may tell you they're diabetic, or some of them may tell you they need to be gluten-free. Why is this important? Well, if you host customer meetings and you serve refreshments, it's a good idea to be able to accommodate those needs, and you can't do it if you don't know about it. Interesting book by a gentleman named Gerald Zaltman called How Customers Think. Our brains have separate structures for processing emotions and logical reasoning. The two systems communicate and jointly affect behavior. More important, the emotional system, the older of the two in terms of evolution, typically exert the first force on our thinking and behavior. I've encountered this concept before by other writers. Of our two parts of our personality, the intellectual part and the emotional part, the emotional is stronger. So how your customers believe you treat them, how they perceive your attitude toward them, and your caring interest is really going to have a strong influence on whether or not you get any referrals. Referrals require two components. First, intellectually, the customer must believe that you delivered a good quality product within a reasonable time frame at a fair-minded price. And they must feel emotionally that you were interested in them as human beings and paid attention to their particular needs and wants. If you can do that, you're really going to develop a strong relationship with your customers. When they give you a referral, some of the trust you've created with your original customer is automatically passed on to the new person. And that's a good thing because building trust with our customers is a bit of a challenge. I want to talk now about how to deal with all of this in an effective way. And I will be honest with you and say there's good news and bad news. Now, the bad news isn't too terrible to get around once we recognize it. Years ago, I did homeowner orientations full time for 2 years. I did almost 800 of them. I will tell you the truth, after doing about 47 and explaining how the garbage disposal worked 47 times and how to take good care of it and how to clean it and where the reset button was, I got a little tired of talking about it. I wanted to just say the book for the garbage disposal is in the drawer. You should probably read it and move on. But I knew I needed to give every customer all the information, even if I was tired of hearing it. It's very similar to uh, any work that is repetitive. It's easy to get bored with it. It's easy to try to short circuit it. It's easy to try to find shortcuts. And that doesn't do your customer any good. So our challenge is to maintain enthusiasm even if we're a little bit tired of the subject, even if we're a little bit tired of going over information for the 94th time. I would suggest you think of yourself as the star of a play on Broadway, and you're going to do the same lines night after night in your performance, but each time it's for a different audience. And with our customers, each time we have a different audience, and we need to remember our lines and deliver them with enthusiasm and passion as if we're doing it for the first or second time. One thing that comforts us in this is a team effort. We've got many people in our organization who communicate with the customer and help them understand the parts and pieces. It is critically important in today's world that we be upfront, honest, and candid with our buyers. Don't gloss over anything. Don't skip the hard parts. They have got to know the things that they're responsible for, the timing, the deadlines, the cost, and so forth. One of the things we can do in this regard is make sure we've got good tools in hand. There's an expectation tools inventory in figure 1 of the handout that accompanies this program. It's relatively easy to go down this list and rank yourself in terms of which ones of these do we have and which ones do we use effectively, where can we improve, and then a critical question is, do any of these materials need to be updated? Do they need to be reviewed? Are there typos in them? Are they formatted the same way? Do they look professional and polished? They send a message about your commitment as a company to quality. And you want to make sure you show the customer you pay attention to every detail, because right now they're very questioning. They're very worried about what's going to happen, who's going to do what when, and they want to know what's going on in a clear, concise manner. One of your best tools in this regard is a well-organized homeowner guide. And just so you know, if you do not have one, I will share the one I wrote with you. It's a template that's about 180 pages. It includes an introduction and 8 chapters. The newest chapter we recently added about a year ago deals with the homeowner association. What expectations can a homeowner have of the HOA? Who's responsible for what? We found that information was important for them to be happy in a situation where they have a homeowner association, perhaps for the first time. Especially needy for a builder in Boulder, Colorado that I worked with. When we realized that we weren't doing a good job of setting expectations about the association, we went to work, rolled up our sleeves, and decided we just need to add it to the homeowner guide and then add it to our agendas for our meetings with the customers and begin to talk about it more, explain it more clearly, and give them more information. Especially if you're having customers move into a 55 and over community and they've not lived in a place with a homeowners association before, this information is critical to them being satisfied. When you have a good homeowner guide, the next step is to use it effectively. I have a lot of builders who say, yeah, we have a homeowner guide, but nobody reads it. And my first response is, that's your fault. If your homeowners aren't using it, it's because you're not using it in front of them. They need to see us carry it under our arm, open it, consult it, follow what it says, refer to it, use it as a resource. It should be a helpful tool for your homeowners. It's not just the rule book. In Figure 2, there are over 24 ideas for promoting a homeowner guide with your buyers. Not every employee uses all of these. The salespeople will use some, selections will use others, and superintendents use still different ones, as well as warranty. But the more we integrate it into our process from the very beginning, the more effective it will be with the customers. They will begin to see that staff reads it. That must be pretty important. Maybe I ought to look at it. Very few of them are going to read it cover to cover, and that's okay. What we want is for them to realize they can find answers to normal questions in this book, and that helps them understand and navigate the process more effectively. They feel more comfortable when they have information in their hand. And for the record, it needs to be in hard copy. I have a lot of clients who have gone to delivering it on a jump drive or a disk. It doesn't work that way. The customer is not going to plug it into their computer and read all of that material online. They need to have it in their hand. I know it's paper, my goodness. That's old fashioned, but it's what works. I also want to look at the nature and the quality of the experience we provide. Process and our product are both very complicated. We're used to it. We understand it. We don't worry about it the way the buyers do. Some of your buyers have never purchased a new home before. Others may have had a negative experience with a previous builder. We need to manage the experience we provide to make sure it's pleasant, it's comfortable, they feel safe, they feel cared for, and they feel communicated with. I also call attention to the concept of experience engineering. Popped into my head one day when I was looking through some old articles, and they were talking about customer delight. And I thought, boy, that's an old concept. Customer delight came around in the 90s when we were serving cookies at our meetings with customers and that type of thing. That was a good thing to do. It was a step in the right direction, but it didn't go nearly far enough. What we were trying to do was make the experience more fun. And a cookie's a nice touch, but let's face it, it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of buying a house. We needed to roll our sleeves up and really tackle our processes, our systems, our paperwork, and the training of our front line. As you examine the ideas in experience engineering described in Figure 3, you may find some places in your process that you can roll up your sleeves and revise and update just a bit. Polish training for your people on the front line so they can manage the experience successfully, keep the customer feeling safe, and enjoying the process. One of the valuable tools in this is also community team meetings. This is where the superintendent and salesperson get together typically once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Ideally, from time to time, the selection manager and the warranty rep for this community can sit in on these meetings. It's important for them to contribute ideas and thoughts, share their observations, and perhaps questions and comments they've heard from their buyers. As we go through the community team meeting agenda, one of the items on it is showmanship. You have a copy of that agenda in your handout in Figure 4, and showmanship is the last item on the second column. Showmanship is our little touches of attention, personalized for the customer. A tiny example was a single woman. She lost her husband to cancer, and she sold the big family home and was moving into a townhome. She had a little dog that she brought with her to every meeting she had with the builder. Everybody in the company got to know the dog and understood why she was clinging to it. It was in her handbag every time she came to a meeting with them. At her orientation, the construction superintendent showed up and gave her a new dog tag with the dog's name and her phone number and her new address on it. That dog tag was so impressive to her, she burst into tears. The community is still talking about this dog tag 2 years later. The dog tag cost the superintendent $6. That's a perfect example of the personalized attention we're looking for with our buyers. It requires sort of a radar to pay attention to what they talk about, the questions they ask, the stories they share with you, information about their previous experiences. All of these things can give you ideas for extra attention you can give them. It doesn't usually cost a lot, doesn't usually take much time, but it requires a thoughtful commitment to your customers on an emotional level. As we manage our customer meetings, there are a great many details to consider. Figure 5 is the customer meeting matrix. As you look at your customer meeting series, ask yourself, have you addressed each meeting in a systematic way so that the meetings flow together, one to the next as a system? We don't want them to look random. We don't want them to be one is great and the other one is kind of mediocre. As an example, I observed some meetings in Pensacola, Florida. At the design appointment, Lavish refreshments were served. The buyers' coats were hung up. They took pictures of what they selected. They had a wonderful opportunity to visit with different trade contractors if they wanted to. If they had questions about caring for hardwood floor, the construction folks would manage to get a phone call or an online meeting organized with someone from that company. It was very well done, very professional, and very polished. Next day, I observed a frame stage tour. The home was full of trash. There was mud. There was coffee cups on the floor. There was even beer cans in the front yard. Vehicles parked in the street so that the customer had to park down the road half a block from their new home. It didn't go well. The meeting didn't have an agenda. The spiel from the superintendent was nothing more than pointing out the electrical outlets and the heat vents. It really wasn't a good quality frame tour at all. And by comparison to the wonderful design meeting I had observed the day before, it was really shocking. Our policies and practices need to be at a level of quality that is consistent from one event to the next to the next. Speaking of events, when we deliver the home, it's essential that it be move-in ready. I know contracts generally say the home will be deemed substantially completed upon the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Well, okay, that's a fine legal definition, but this is your customer's definition. They don't want to have to wipe out dust from their cabinets before they can unpack their dishes. They want to be able to move in and put things away conveniently and quickly. They don't want to have to clean the toilets before they use them. We need to make sure the home is polished, and if that means a touch-up cleaning at the last minute to get the dust and whatever other debris might have accumulated from trades doing last-minute items, then it's important to get it done. Our customer's comfort level is essential, and cleaning is one thing every buyer can recognize. They may not know if the trusses are set correctly, but they recognize dirt and dust. Homeowner orientation should feel like a celebration. Ideally, the home is in such polished condition that we have fewer than 10 items on the homeowner orientation. If you're not there yet, I suggest you look into quality management systems and processes which need to start very early on at the beginning of construction and include inspections all the way through the process to catch problems and correct them. Once people get moved in, our next challenge is to wean them off the excitement of the process. Now remember, we've got a customer who's pretty stressed out, and moving is a lot of work, as we all know. By the time they get moved into the house, they're pretty exhausted. But look back over the experience. Using a home, picking a builder, making their selections, organizing financing, watching the home be built, looking forward to moving in, and finally the closing happens. Then they move in, and suddenly we drop them on their heads. We tell them, oh, send in a list at 60 days. That really doesn't work well. Much better to continue having contact with them and wean them off the excitement. We can do that in many different ways. It doesn't all fall on the warranty department. Salespeople might stop out at the house with a welcome to the community gift, maybe a week or 10 days after they move in. Perhaps the superintendent stops by unannounced, knocks on the door to see if they have any questions. Is everything working okay? Yeah, everything's fine, but I'm really confused by this day-night thermostat. Could you walk me through it? Sure, no problem. I can do that. And you spend a few minutes with that issue. Just make the customer feel important and cared for and looked after. If the selection process takes place somewhere near the community, it's a wonderful idea for the selection consultant to go out and visit the home and see the colors all together in an actual home. Maybe you are in the business of selling window coverings, and this second visit could give you another opportunity to make that happen. Now we come to the subject of warranty. I'm a big fan of the primary visit being set with the customer before they close on the home. We want to send a message to them that we're going to continue to pay attention even after they pay for the house. We can approach this by saying, we'd like to come out and visit your home somewhere between 30 and 90 days, whatever's comfortable for you. We want to inspect it for you and confirm that it's performing to the standards we promised. In figures 6 and 7, you'll find pros and cons of this and a sample agenda for this meeting. This is an important point to say to the customer, we're standing behind our product. Unfortunately, the home building industry has a reputation of sort of turning our backs on the customers after we get paid. We need to change that, and it's simple and easy to do. Most of the time, you end up going out to almost every house you built anyway for warranty work. Why not take control of it and turn it into a positive? It doesn't take much time to set this appointment. Now, on a personal note, I want to remind you that all of the things we looked at that are stressing your customers are stressing us as well. It's easy to forget that in the busy day that you have. Sometimes it's a good idea to just sit quietly with your hands in your lap and think about the good things in your life. It's easy to get distracted from that. And actually, most of us have quite a few once we start to focus on it. To put this another way, I will share with you a quote from a pen and pencil set that I had on my desk for years. The base had a quote on it that I really enjoyed, and I hung on to this for a long, long time. And when the pen and pencil finally broke up, I kept the base and pinned this to my bulletin board. The statement was, illegitimus non patum carborundum. That's Latin for don't let the bastards get you down. And at this point, I'd like you to unmute yourselves if you did that. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to chat with you as long as needed.
All right. Thank you so much, Carol. That was very enlightening. I can
You
see
are very
why
welcome.
from your presentation, why some of our customers are a little bit edgy, so to speak. We do have, we have one comment that I thought was very interesting. Our first comment came when you were talking about the countries that were listed with the highest rank.
Yes.
And this person mentioned that the countries with the highest rank actually had women leading them.
Well, I wasn't going to mention that, but
the crowd did it for you.
I appreciate that.
And then I have another question here that just popped up. How can we get a copy of the updated homeowner's manual that you referenced?
I just need someone's email address, and I will send it out this afternoon. There is
Excellent.
no cost for it. I had it published by NAHB back in 2000, and it was part of my contract that I can share the homeowner guide at no cost with my clients because I didn't want to have to buy a copy of my own book every time I worked with a new builder. So that's been a long-standing policy, and I'm happy to share it. They will also get a list of about a page and a half long that is suggestions on the steps to take to customize it. In the homeowner guide, they will see the word builder in brackets, and the first thing they're going to do, chapter by chapter, is replace that word with their company name, and then that personalizes it and makes it feel like their own document. After that, they will read through it and adjust the procedures and the standards and the processes and timing and so forth to reflect their processes. But many times they find that what I've written is a pretty good template.
Oh, excellent. Well, I have her email. So what I'm going to do, Sarah, is I'm going to go ahead and email you and Carol so that you both are on the same email chain, and then she can reply back to you with a copy of her book.
Emma Jane, the other thing I will make available to the builders if they need it, I have a set of sample meeting agendas. There are 12 of them. They start with home site reservation and they go clear through warranties. So if they would like to see those agendas and compare them to what they're currently using, I'm happy to share those as well. They are all formatted the same way, even though the agenda subjects are different. They look very cohesive and very polished.
Excellent. Well, Sarah will take those as well. So, Sarah, I'll go ahead and send an email to you at the close of the webinar today. And then,
Okay.
Then Carol can reply to you with those two things. We have John Karowski, who is a very loyal Webinar Wednesday person. Thank you for joining us again today, John. We love having you. He said, thank you for a great webinar. Carol, you are the best. And I hear that from so many different people. We love our partnership with you because you truly are one of the best in this industry.
I appreciate that. You know what, Emma Jane, it's just because nobody else wanted the job.
Well, you know what? If you're really good at it and nobody else wants to do it, you might as well take it over, right?
Might as well, absolutely. Well, I've had a good time. I started doing customer service work back in 1975 when I was a property manager and spent many years on the front line getting my teeth kicked down my throat, and that's how I learned what works and what doesn't. So I have a lot of sympathy with the builders out there today. I know it's not an easy job to keep today's buyers happy.
Oh, yes. let's see, I had another question. Oh, somebody was asking if they could get how to watch the replay and get a copy of this webinar. We don't allow downloads of the webinar, but we will have the recording available on our website as soon as it's finished processing. So I'll make sure to get that link updated as soon as it finishes processing on the Zoom side. So it should be available this afternoon, tomorrow morning at the latest. So you can watch it at any time and feel free to share it. Oh, and we have Marissa. Marissa, I'll go ahead and add you to that email to get that information from Carol. Let's see. Oh, John says the first part of your seminar seems to be a possible use for school, families, churches. Is it possible to consider use for those groups?
It's perfectly fine with me and Emma Jane. Anybody who wants a copy of my slides, I will send them a PDF. Again, I just need their email address, and the PDF file is a reasonable size. The actual PowerPoint is an enormous file, and it doesn't email well. But the PDF would give them the slides that they can use if they want to review 4 or 5 of them with their staff. They can pick those out, and so on and so forth.
Okay, excellent. John, I'll go ahead and send an email with you and Carol as well, so that you guys can have some communication about that on the side. Excellent. Well, I don't have any other questions right here, but I do want to say, I think that the first part of your webinar was very eye-opening. I appreciate you putting it all on one page. I know that a lot of us are dealing with all of those different things coming at us from different directions, but I'm not sure that I've ever seen anybody kind of put it together into a perspective like that. So you could really see and understand all the things that somebody's dealing with on a regular basis. And then to throw in the stress of building a new home, you can understand exactly why sometimes people come at you with a little bit of vinegar when they're talking to you.
And that's kind of what we get for selling them what is probably the most important and the most expensive product that they ever buy within a context of a society that's a little bit stressed right now. And I was amazed myself as I started pulling that together and watching the news media, and every day I'd find another topic to add to the list, and I couldn't believe it when it got to 20, and then I found more. And there are probably others that I missed that people are sitting out there, why didn't she mention this? But there's just a lot going on right now. And part of the reason we're so stressed with it is because there's so many communication systems to keep us informed about all of it.
Exactly. And we didn't have that before, where you could go ahead and be like, oh, you could kind of go in a little bit of a bliss and an ignorant bliss. And now it's literally in the palm of your hands 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And not only is it just the news, but it's also the commentary around all of those topics as well. So it
Absolutely correct.
does make it a
Emma
little bit
Jane, I'll make
stressful.
one more offer to your
Yes.
audience today. If any of them have a particular issue with one of their home owners or home buyers that they would like to discuss with me privately, I'm happy to take a phone call or by way of email, set an appointment for a phone conference, and we can kick around some ideas on how to solve existing problems with customers.
Oh, that's a wonderful. And you guys, I really recommend, if you have a minute to spend with Carol, it's a blessing. She's got so many great ideas, and she's been doing this for a very long time. Not yet, pretty much as long as Chuck and Emma, right?
Almost, almost.
So she's seen it all, all the different decades, all the different generations. And since they're all in the marketplace at the same time, you might as well spend some time bending her ear a little bit. So, and I got a bunch of requests from different people. So I'm going to be sending an email with all of these people for you. I'm writing them down here on my notepad so I don't miss anybody. If for some reason I missed you or you didn't get a chance to give me your name, you can email me directly. If you respond to your registration for the webinar, that comes to me directly. I'll be sure to forward your information on to Carol as well. All right.
Thank you. As always, this was a pleasure.
John has one more question, Carol. If you have any interest in doing a webinar on how to focus on examples of how to make people more relaxed and happy when we first meet them.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yes, I'd be interested in developing something along those lines. That's a very positive approach. I like it.
Thank you for your suggestion, John. We are always looking for good suggestions, so we'll take a stab at that one too. So with that, thank you guys so much. Thank you everyone for joining us for Webinar Wednesday. We're back again next week with Ed Hauk. He's going to be talking about performance engineering and the importance of really evaluating your plans for saving cost and improving the way you're building your products. So join us again next week at the same time, same place, and we'll see you then. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you to Carol.
You're very welcome. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.